In the tense and unforgiving world of aerial warfare, a single technological breakthrough can shift the balance of power. Most fighter jets evolve gradually, each new model refining what came before. But sometimes, designers refuse to settle for small improvements. They aim to break the mold entirely. That's exactly what Lockheed Martin and NASA set out to do with the X-44 Manta. It was a concept so daring and unconventional that it seemed ripped from a science fiction epic. This was not merely another step forward in aviation. It was a leap toward redefining what was possible in the skies. A vision without a tail. The Manta's defining feature was also its boldest gamble. It had no tail. On nearly every aircraft built in the last century, tail fins are essential for stability and control. Removing them was the aviation equivalent of taking the steering wheel out of a car. Yet the X-44's engineers believed they could replace those control surfaces entirely with vectored engine thrust. By adjusting the direction of exhaust flow, the aircraft could pitch, roll, and yaw with surgical precision. This wasn't just a technical stunt. It had profound implications for stealth. Vertical stabilizers are notorious for reflecting radar signals, giving enemy systems something to lock onto. By eliminating them, the Manta would dramatically reduce its radar cross-section. Combined with its sleek, delta-shaped wing, the aircraft's silhouette would be aerodynamic, efficient, and nearly invisible to radar. From F-22 heritage to a radical new shape. The X-44's design drew heavily from the F-22 Raptor, one of the most advanced fighters in history, but the similarities ended with the engines and fuselage. The Manta extended its wing into a large delta form, creating more internal space for fuel and increasing range. It aimed to merge propulsion and control into one seamless system, with fewer moving parts than conventional fighters and far greater maneuverability. In concept, it was a fighter that could fly farther, last longer in the air, and turn more sharply than anything else in service, while also being harder to spot and track. It was designed not simply to compete with other jets, but to render them obsolete. NASA and the Air Force joined forces. The X-44 project began quietly in May 1999 as a partnership between NASA and the U.S. Air Force. The goal was to explore advanced flight control methods that could benefit both military and civilian aviation. Engineers considered using the technology on an F-22 or even an older F-15 to test its potential. By June of the same year, the project was officially approved under the name X-44A, and hopes were high that a prototype would take flight by 2007. The vision was of a jet capable of unmatched agility, stealth, and endurance. A plane that could push the boundaries of aerial combat and redefine performance standards. The project's sudden halt. But less than a year after approval, the program ran headlong into financial reality. Funding was cut, and the Manta's development came to an abrupt halt. No prototype was ever built, and the X-44 seemed destined to remain a what-if in aviation history. Still, its influence persisted. Many of the design principles explored for the Manta, especially in stealth shaping and thrust vector control, would resurface in later aircraft, both manned and unmanned. The Manta may not have flown, but it planted seeds that would grow in unexpected places. Stealth by design. The Manta's lack of tail wasn't just a quirky feature, it was a stealth advantage. Radar works by bouncing electromagnetic waves off objects and reading the reflections. Tail fins, with their sharp edges and vertical planes, send strong returns to radar systems. Remove them, and you reduce the surfaces for radar to detect, making the aircraft far more elusive. This stealth shaping went hand in hand with aerodynamic efficiency. Without protruding stabilizers, drag was reduced, improving fuel economy and extending operational range. In essence, the X-44 was designed to be a ghost, difficult to detect, harder to track, and nearly impossible to catch. The X-44A, the Manta's unmanned cousin. While the manned Manta never took flight, its experimental spirit survived in the X-44A. a small, unmanned aerial vehicle built by Lockheed Martin's secretive Skunk Works division. The drone embraced the same tailless philosophy, but operated without a pilot on board, controlled remotely or flying autonomously on pre-programmed missions. The X-44A served as a valuable test platform, even proving its ability to land on moving aircraft carriers, one of aviation's most challenging maneuvers. Its construction used nanocarbon fiber, a lightweight yet incredibly strong material, and it boasted a 30-foot wingspan. Powered by a Williams F-112 turbofan engine, it could reach speeds of 176 miles per hour and remain airborne for an hour and a half. Enough for critical test flights without risking human life. 2 decades of secrecy. For nearly 20 years, the X-44A remained hidden from public view. Only in October 2020 did it finally appear at the National Museum of the United States Air Force in Dayton, Ohio. There, visitors could see firsthand the compact, stealthy drone that had quietly influenced the evolution of modern UAVs. While its specifications seem modest by today's drone standards, at the time they represented a leap forward in stealth and efficiency. The X-44A's true importance lay not in its speed or endurance, but in the groundbreaking technologies it tested in secrecy. Eyes from China and Russia. Even in its absence from production lines, the Manta concept has not gone unnoticed by America's rivals. Both China and Russia are investing heavily in stealth fighter programs, producing the Chengdu J-20 and Sukhoi Su-57 respectively. These aircraft are advanced, but neither employs the radical tailless architecture of the X-44. If the United States were to revive the Manta concept with modern materials and systems, it could gain a decisive edge in stealth and maneuverability, potentially forcing China and Russia into a costly game of catch-up. The checkmate and the old guard. China's next steps may include a J-25 or an improved J-31, while Russia has been promoting its Su-75 checkmate fighter as a cheaper alternative to Western jets. However, the Su-75 has yet to complete a flight, and ongoing sanctions have complicated access to vital components. Without operational testing, it remains more of a marketing statement than a combat-ready platform. Meanwhile, Russia continues to rely on aircraft like the Su-34 Fullback, a fighter-bomber hybrid that entered service in 2014, despite first flying back in 1990. Designed for all-weather strike missions, the Su-34 features a distinctive side-by-side cockpit and can carry a massive payload of bombs, missiles, and rockets. While powerful, its size and reliance on older design principles make it far from stealthy, leaving it exposed in modern air combat environments. The silent competition. The Manta's story is part of a larger, largely unspoken rivalry between the United States, China, and Russia. Each new fighter, drone, or missile test is a move in a strategic chess game, with each side studying the other's innovations and racing to respond. Officially, the focus is on modernization. In practice, it is about staying one step ahead. Though it never became an operational aircraft, the X-44 remains a symbol of how bold ideas can set the tone for future developments, even decades later. A legacy ahead of its time. The Manta was more than just a stealth fighter concept. It was a fundamental rethinking of how aircraft could be controlled. Relying entirely on vectored thrust was once considered too radical for real-world use. But the research behind the X-44 showed it was possible. Today, with advances in computer flight systems, artificial intelligence, and materials engineering, the idea is far more feasible. If revived with modern technology, the Manta could emerge as a dominant force in next-generation air combat. It could bridge the gap between manned and unmanned systems, offering unmatched stealth, endurance, and agility. And that wraps up the fascinating story of the X-44 Manta. If you enjoyed diving into this piece of hidden aviation history, make sure to hit that like and subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our deep dives into the most advanced and mysterious aircraft in the world. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.